Welcome everyone. My name is Mrs. Lugo. I'm the head of school here at Fairmont Historic Anaheim campus, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, where we will be exploring an introduction to the International Baccalaureate program, which is one of our differentiators here at Fairmont Historic Anaheim campus and something that we are really excited to share with you. I am a 20-year educator and have had the privilege of working in several schools throughout my career. Joining me today is our wonderful Associate Head of School, Mrs. Erin Thomas, who I'm also excited to share today's presentation with.
Hi, everyone. It's great to have you with us here today. And as an educator with over 20 years in independent school practice, I'm wholeheartedly looking forward to sharing what is my greatest passion, increasing the learning through the International Baccalaureate program.
All right, as we get started today, I'd like to challenge you just a little bit with a quick brainstorming activity. If you are joining us from home or the office, maybe just think about your children where they are now and project them into the future. As your kiddos get ready to graduate and they are leaving our school system, I'd like you to think for just a minute about what you would like them to be able to do in order to be successful adults. So if they are a young child, kindergarten, first grade, this is a big stretch. If you have maybe a middle schooler or someone who's getting ready for high school, this is only a few years away from you. Just take a moment and jot down a couple of things that come to mind. You might think about some important skills, some habits, really what you'd like them to be able to do when they graduate in order to be successful adults. All right. Now, if you are like myself or Mrs. Thomas or some of our other families that we've run this workshop with, you might have written down things like, we'd like them to be able to make good decisions when we're not there. We want them to feel comfortable with strong relationships. Strong communication skills comes up often. Social skills comes up often. We want our children to grow up as knowledgeable, caring young people who are ready to go out there and make a difference in the world. And so if you have a list that's similar to ours, then I think we are already off to a great start. If you have some other things that are in mind, I'm going to challenge you as we go through today's workshop, maybe just to check those things off the list as we present about the IB program. And at the end of our webinar, we'll have just a little checklist for ourselves of how many targets we've hit.
I can't wait to see how many people check off.
So one of our driving pillars in the International Baccalaureate program is the IB Learner Profile. The IB Learner Profile attributes represent the 10 most important things that we work hard to foster within our written, taught, and assessed curriculum. The IB Learner Profile attributes of being an inquirer, knowledgeable, thinker, strong communicator, principled, open-minded, caring, risk takers, balanced, and reflective. These are the character traits and the habits of scholarship that we work to foster in all of our students. These are celebrated in our school community at our weekly flag salute. Our teachers and students can nominate these character traits within each other when they see them evident. Our teachers also use this language in our classrooms as we are studying literature, evaluating important figures in history, or discussing different scientists or historians that our students might come across in our curriculum.
You know, there's such a strength in common language, and I echo your sentiments with having this shared set of values amongst our teachers, our staff, our students, and our families. It just really helps us align the learning to make sure that it is consistent and long-lasting as well.
We do this workshop often, and I think it's really interesting to consider what you value most in our learner profile attributes. Oftentimes we will see families of young children will prioritize the attributes of being caring and principled. And then as we run this workshop with our middle school students, 10 out of 10 times our middle school students will prioritize being a risk taker as what they value as their number one. I think it's important to recognize that as we grow up and we're in different ages and stages, the learner profile attributes that are most relevant to us can change over time. But as we grow and through the IB, our learner profile attributes represent the IB mission statement in action. And so we have the IB mission statement up on the screen for you to take a look at. And as you read through this, I'd like to bring you back to that initial challenge to see if you can recognize any words or phrases in our mission statement that jump out to you as something that might check off one of the targets on that first brainstorming list we tasked you with.
I know something that always is on my list is being a self-driven learner, and I love that that is part of the IB mission statement for students we encourage students to become active learners. And I think when you walk around the halls of our school and into our classrooms, you really do see students acting with that sense of agency, and it's such a celebration.
So as you are considering your list, I'd like to share with you a little bit of the history of the IB. So the International Baccalaureate is a framework of education that is widely regarded as the gold standard in global education. The IB was originally created in 1968 by a team of really renowned educators that many of us still look to as the gladiators in education when we're thinking about educational philosophy. But this team of teachers got together and team of philosophers and educators and they recognized a need for a global system of education that was designed to meet the needs of children of diplomats who were very globally mobile, who were interested in agency and action and being very knowledgeable about the world around them, helping to identify their place and how they can make a difference. So the IB was originally created with a diploma program, which serves students in grades 11 and 12. And then as the program continued developing, later the IB created the middle years program and the primary years program. Here at Historic Anaheim campus, we are very pleased to be one of 19 schools in the nation that offers the whole continuum of IB, starting at age 3 in our preschool with our primary years program, moving all the way up through the diploma program at Fairmont's Preparatory Academy. Here at the Historic Anaheim campus, every student is an IB student. We proudly serve the IB program age 3 through grade 8. Some of you may be wondering at this point, what is the IB and what makes the IB different? Hopefully in today's discussion, we're able to share just a few tidbits with you that stand out to us. But most predominantly, the IB is a system of education that is inquiry-based and conceptually driven. In traditional learning, a teacher may stand at the front of the room and lead the students through their workbooks or through their textbooks. On page 16, we read and take notes. On page 17, we read and take notes. On page 18, we read and take notes. We might have a small project or a discussion. The students will take a test. They'll earn the grades they get. They'll get their test back, and we'll move on. In the IB, much of the learning is through inquiry, where our teachers are highly trained in these IB practices and will work hard to encourage the students to generate curiosities and questions. And then they drive that learning through lenses that are conceptual. So instead of learning about perhaps the topic of extinction, the topic of dinosaurs, our teachers might drive their learning through the lens of extinction, where we're able to make bigger and bigger conceptual connections across the curriculum. We've had a chance to talk just a little bit about some of the things that make the IB program special to us at the preschool through 8th grade level. And before we go on, we'd like to share with you some of the perspectives from higher education and why the IB is such a prized program and is the gold standard. Just a few minutes, we'd like to show you a video from Stanford University, where one of their deans of admissions is talking about what they do when they receive an IB diploma applicant.
As a parent thinking about having my child attend an IB program, I do remember worrying about the rigor and was it going to be worth it? And I think in so many ways it has been. I think the changes I saw in my own child going through the IB program were primarily recognizing that he could do things that he never thought he could do. It expanded his way of thinking. It encouraged our entire family to travel more than we would have otherwise. His linguistic skills were really honed, and all of those things have come into play later on. So in ways that you don't necessarily expect, I think a parent can actually watch your child grow and expand in these many different ways that the IB promotes. Selective institutions, highly selective institutions like Stanford, perceive IB students as strongly prepared, capable, ready to take on the challenges of the curriculum that we offer. Our schools tend to have a higher expectation for students coming in just because the nature of our student bodies are highly prepared. And IB students are among those who are ready to tackle whatever it is we can offer them in the very beginning. When we see an IB student's application, we light up. We are excited. We're looking to see how a student has taken on the IB. It's so individualized when you really get down to it. Many projects are self-initiated. Research is done based on things that they really care about, and that's an unusual opportunity for students in high school, and I think if they can portray that on their applications, it makes them sound more lively. It shows us what's going on inside their heads. It gives us a sense of their initiative. The IB definitely has research, and institutions have done it as well, to show that there is a higher success rate of IB students in the first year or two of college.
So next, we'd like to talk with you just a little bit about some of the acceptance rates at the top 25 universities. Many of the students who enroll at Fairmont are like-minded, and many of our families have hopes and wishes of their students going on to attend some of these elite universities. The college acceptance framework has changed quite a bit over the years, and the International Baccalaureate program, the IB program, has quickly emerged as an indicator to higher universities, as they have a reputation of developing students that will be highly successful at the university level. IB students are known as thinkers. They are known as students who are able to solve difficult problems because they've been trained to think in this conceptual framework where they're not just categorizing information as a series of topics. They've been able to synthesize information into a schema that helps them solve complex problems, think critically, think creatively, be the innovative learners that are really the ones that are going to go out into the world and solve those really difficult problems that have puzzled us for many years. This is on the slide for you is a quick snapshot from this research study where there were 25 universities, 25 of the top universities were examined, and their acceptance rates were compared between the IB diploma students and the rest of the general population. And I'd love for you just to take a quick minute to look at this slide and think about, what do you notice? What jumps out at you?
I mean, right away, I know what I notice is the staggering difference between those acceptance rates for IB students. And I think as a parent who has the privilege of sending their children to private school or independent schools, your job is to unlock as many doors as possible for your child. And the IB program really lends itself well to do this. We know those learners, they grow, they change, but ultimately we want them to be able to pursue their passions and pursue higher education opportunities that they're really excited about. And it's so nice to see that what we say and what we share with our families and our students really is proved through these research studies.
So now that you have had a zoomed out snapshot of where the diploma program can take your children after Fairmont, we would love to share with you some of our highlights from the classrooms that give you, I think, a nice snapshot of what an IB learner is and does. And so you've heard us say a little bit that through the IB, we challenge students to think differently, where students, it's not just enough to know information, but students are challenged day after day to take that information and apply it. And so there's a large focus on authentic learning, on what you can do with what you know, and really helping students understand that their voice matters and what they do with the information that they have is really valuable as they go out and try to make our world a better place. So one of my favorite projects that we do in the PYP, so our PYP program runs age 3 through grade 5. Grade 5 is the last year of the primary years program. And at the end of grade 5, all of our students participate in the PYP exhibition. The PYP exhibition is a student-led inquiry project where students are encouraged to explore sustainable action they are encouraged to choose a global issue of local significance. And as they explore that topic, we challenge students to maybe change their thinking and learn about this topic through their own lines of inquiry, and then bring sustainable action in a presentation that they share with their teachers and peers. In the exhibition, all of our students are assigned a mentor and a local expert. And I think some of the topics, the topics range quite broadly, where some of our students have been really curious about animal rights or food sustainability, access to education, gender rights, gender roles, equal pay for equal work. I think Mrs. Thomas was a mentor. Would you like to share a little bit about one of your groups?
Absolutely. I worked with a group that was investigating equal pay for equal work, or gender equality within the workplace. And they were so fascinated with learning about the different regulations and laws that they never knew existed. And in fact, one of the things that we do is we connect our exhibition students with local experts in the area. So they interviewed our head of HR. They had to go into the boardroom. We practiced, what does it look like to introduce yourself in a professional setting? How do you shake a stranger's hands? How do you give that best first impression? And then they asked some of the most hard-hitting questions you could ever imagine. I think, in fact, our head of HR afterward was like, wow, I was not quite ready for the depth and breadth of the questions students asked. And what I loved was the change in thinking from the beginning of the project to the end. So at the beginning, their impact statement maybe needed a little bit of fleshing out. And by the end, they had a really clear idea of how to bring awareness to the issues surrounding equality in the workplace. And it spread like wildfire, throughout the student population. So not only were they very invested in their project, but then they went out and shared that excitement for that learning with their peers and with their families. And ultimately, that's what we want to do. We know we have them for a precious short amount of time when you think about life in a larger perspective, and knowing that students feel empowered to impact their peer group, their friends, their community is just such a wonderful thing.
One of our PYPX groups last year had decided to really focus on the growing issue of people experiencing homelessness in our local community. They had one of their younger aged teachers was their mentor. And as they worked through their project, she ended up connecting them with some local outreach officers from Anaheim PD. And our students were brilliant. And they were able to develop their lines of inquiry and their questions. And through this project, students are encouraged to connect with a community expert to learn more. And as they met with the officers came to school and they met with this group of students. They had, I think, a really brilliant meeting, and our students were able to ask their questions and learn more. But what really struck me is that after this meeting, the kids had gone back to class, the officers came in and they sat down with us and they said, we just want to let you know how impressed we are with these fifth graders. They were so articulate. They were very knowledgeable about a complex problem. And they says, always gets me a little teary. They said, up until we had a conversation with your group of fifth graders, this is a problem we've been working on for many years. And up until that conversation, we had not once considered that children might be a part of the solution. And I think for us, that was really powerful and really exciting for our students to hear that, they had immediately made an impact in our local community. Now the project is over, but those kids have continued to be, deeply invested in the solution and have continued their learning well beyond the scope of the project. And I think for us, that developing that true sense of being a lifelong learner, being passionate about something, knowing that you can go out in the community and make a difference with the tools and the knowledge and the gifts that you've been given is really important as we, hope to raise kids that go out and live a really fulfilled life. And so for us, I think that was a really special moment for me. And I know for Mrs. Thomas as we work with students in the PYPX.
It's just such a celebration when we get to see these projects at the end of the year.
And so moving beyond the PYP exhibition in grade 5, then our students matriculate into our middle school, which is our middle years program, MYP, which runs grade 6 through grade 8. In the primary years program, a lot of the learning is transdisciplinary, where you have a homeroom class and you're learning in all of the subjects together. And then as students move into middle school, their disciplines become a bit more discrete, but they still have a lot of interdisciplinary connection. It's really important to us to help students learn that no problem alone will be solved with only math or only science or only history. Growing up to be complex problem solvers means that they can see connection between the disciplines and that they're able to apply their learning in one situation to another. At the end of the MYP program in grade 8, all of our students have another capstone project, which is called the MYP Community Project. This is the big brother to the PYP exhibition. Some of our students will continue with the same inquiries, but many of our students have developed new learning or new passion over their course of the middle school years and will choose a new topic of study, which is totally fine. And in the MYP Community Project, students are challenged to propose, plan, implement, and present a project that will meet the needs of someone in our local community that's also tied to personal interest. And so in the PYPX, students are encouraged to identify global issues of local significance and begin to initiate action. In the MYP Community Project, students are required to see that plan through fruition. So they have to identify a problem, come up with their solution, and then execute. Mrs. Thomas, do you want to talk a little bit about one of our favorite projects?
Absolutely, and it has to be Boba to Books. A few years ago, we had a group of squirrely middle school boys that you might not have thought would demonstrate some of the richest learning we've ever seen in the MY Community Project, but they went above and beyond. One day, as they were trying to decide what they wanted to do their community project on, they were noticing, one of their things that they noticed was that here at our historic Anaheim campus, we're really well resourced. Students have one-to-one iPads, they have all of the materials down to pencils, pencil cases, they just have everything that they need. And they wondered if this was the same. And one of the students in the group had come from a local public school and really reflected on how he remembered his teacher spending a lot of her personal funds on basic classroom supplies, and thought about the privilege that we have here on our campus and really wanted to positively impact another local school in the area. And so they went back and visited this teacher, which right there is a fantastic connection in the community, and asked how they could help. They wanted to support. How much money do you typically spend on supplies? And the teacher reflected that it was hundreds of dollars, and they wanted to help this teacher not have to use their personal funds for what they considered the basic needs within any given classroom. And then going beyond that, they also wanted to positively impact local businesses. Nowadays, we see a lot of larger institutions that don't necessarily reflect our local community, and making sure that their project had the greatest impact on our community was really important to them. So they connected with a local boba shop. And we all know that middle schoolers love boba, and they felt that they had a great fundraising opportunity on their hands to not only bring a little joy and excitement to our middle schoolers, but then collect funds, support a local business, and give back to a teacher. So they negotiated a contract. They had to do appropriate bookkeeping. This is one of my favorite things. I think if we tried to get middle school students excited about doing Google Sheets or, Excel spreadsheets, they would maybe, roll their eyes, huff a little. But they were so excited about learning how to run different formulas in the sheets, keep accurate books, sharing out their bookkeeping. And then they invited the business, they negotiated the contract, set up their books, and then invited this business to campus and sold out of boba. It was more successful than we ever thought possible. And then on the day had to troubleshoot just like any regular business. They ran out of product, but they had a line of very excited customers. So then they again negotiated with the boba shop to take those payments and then have a delivery a couple of days later for those students who had waited so enthusiastically and patiently in line. And then going beyond that, they decided it was so successful that they actually created a sustainable gift with the boba shop, this ongoing fundraiser, to make sure that that teacher always had the resources, the financial resources she needed to support her students and their learning in the classroom. And the reflection that students had after the project, first of all, I think they grew a little bit in this project, maybe even more than a little bit. They felt capable. They felt like they understood how to identify a problem and find the best tools to solve that problem. They felt the positive impact they could have on their community. And this is, again, all with teacher support and guidance, but they managed the project themselves. And there is no better message to a middle schooler than "you've got this" as they go into high school. And I think this project really lends itself to doing that.
So as we guide students through learning, you've just heard a little bit about two of our favorite projects, the PYP exhibition and the NYP community project. And those are really wonderful examples of the capstone projects and what an IB student can do that helps support, really why IB is recognized as the gold standard, why colleges recognize that IB students are capable students who are able to solve complex problems, see something through to fruition, finish what they start. But the day-to-day classroom process of an IB learner looks a little bit like this, where we follow the inquiry process. We have really highly trained teachers where students will be presented with a provocation. There's something that gets their questions going, where the teacher researcher really dives into that role and they're collecting questions, they're starting to make connections, and then the teachers will help guide student learning based on the questions that students were presenting. When students are engaged in the learning process and curious about what they're learning, we no longer tell them that they have to learn this next. Students are begging, can you teach me more about this? Can I learn more about this? How do these things work together? Teach me more. And developing hungry learners is really exciting for us. In the inquiry process, we start with questions. We get everyone excited. This might be a field trip, an activity, something to get them wondering. And then the teacher will start to pose some questions. What do you notice here? What do you think about this? What do you wonder? What connections can you make? As students are now being fed little bits of information, a little bit more to learn here, as they ask these questions, students will start to do their own research, gather information, start to put pieces of the puzzle together, and then they begin to analyze this data, share their insights, develop learning, and then the whole process starts again. And so new learning generates more questions, and this is the inquiry process and cycle that we use as the backbone of our planning process here as an IB school. This is one of my favorite snapshot slides, just to give you a little sneak peek into the classroom with the inquiry process in mind. And so the large picture in the center is a group of our kindergartners. They were learning about systems of the body, and the teachers presented a provocation with a whole bunch of loose parts. And they spread out all of these different materials in the classroom, and on large pieces of butcher paper, traced the outline of several of the students, and then challenged our students to identify what we are made of. And the kids were able to use these loose parts to start to create their understanding of what is inside their bodies. They were practicing some literacy skills, some social skills, some collaboration. There was a lot of negotiation. I think this, I think that, what's inside of me? And they begin to identify bones, teeth, skin, organs. And then the teacher is walking around collecting these questions. And then in the next lesson, they might say, you know, Kathleen, I overheard you wondering about how the air comes in and out of our lungs. That's a really great question. Let's explore that together. And then the teachers get to go into this discussion with the students where they're really inspired to learn. The picture on the top left is an example from our third grade students. This picture was taken, I think, right around Valentine's Day. And our students had been learning about water systems and different types of rivers and tributaries and how water goes from one place high in the mountains all the way down to the ocean. They were really looking at how water moves under our local area. And this happened to be right after Valentine's Day, where we had many classroom parties, and there was a little extra trash around our school. We had some leftover things from the parties that made their way to the ground. And one of our third graders in the middle of the lesson raises his hand and he says to his teacher, you know, I'm looking around our school and I'm wondering about all of the trash that's outside. And as you're teaching me about the importance of water and tributaries, how everything makes its way to the ocean, he said, can pollution ever be reversed? As he's looking outside and kind of reflecting. And our IB teacher looks at her class and she says, you know, that's a really great question. Why don't we find out? And so then they had this little impromptu lesson where they grabbed a big bucket, and at recess, each student was challenged to collect a few pieces of trash, and they put everything into the bucket. And then each student went and filled up a smaller bucket with fresh water, and they poured this into the big trash bucket and they swished it all around. And the teacher says, okay, well, now we have something to explore. And they left this big bucket in the classroom for a little while. And a few days later, they said, okay, let's figure out the answer to that question. Can we reverse pollution? And they took out the large pieces of trash that they were able to touch. So what do you notice now? Oh, it's the water is dirty. It's murky. It's definitely not clean. We can't fix this. She says, okay, well, do we have our answer? And coincidentally, they had been on an in-school field trip where they were walking through our middle school, looking at different artifacts. And one of the students had noticed that there was a reverse osmosis set up in our middle school science lab. And he said, do you think that our middle school science teacher would share that with us? Can we go one step further with our experiment? Can we reverse pollution this way? They said, okay, well, let's go ask. And they were able to set up a little system, water filtration system in the back of their third grade classroom, and they let it just run for a couple of days. And then the water did look very clear. And they were really excited. They said, you know what, we've done it. We've cracked the case. We were able to reverse pollution. And our middle school science teacher came to check on them and he said, oh, just a minute, let's look at that one step more, and taught them how to put their slides together, focus their microscope, put the slides under the microscope, and really take a look at what was inside the water now. And they, you know, after a long discussion and lots of questions, had decided that no, it's really difficult to reverse pollution. And then they had this really nice conversation about our responsibility to care for living things, our responsibility to care for the planet, what we can do to help not create the initial problem to begin with, now knowing that it's so hard to undo that damage long term. And this, I think that's one of my favorite examples because it's not necessarily part of the written, taught, or assessed curriculum, but the deep learning that happened through that engagement by following a student question is something that group of children will remember forever. And I think that is a really great example of inquiry in the classroom. It doesn't take long, it's not much, but it really is impactful and meaningful when the teachers can follow those lines of inquiry and capitalize on them to help develop student learning.
And I mean, I think that is what brain research teaches us, that when we learn and through curiosity and excitement, that learning sticks so much better.
So at this point, sometimes our webinar participants might be wondering, well, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. I love this program, but how do teachers manage all of that? So IB teachers are among the most well-trained teachers in the world. Our teachers have, all of the teachers here at Historic Anaheim campus are fully certified IB teachers. I'm also a part of the IB Educator Network, and I'm lucky enough to lead training across the nation for other teachers in other IB schools. And we're really excited to be able to bring that learning back to our campus and share that with our students. We have at Fairmont a deep commitment to ongoing professional learning and professional development, where our teachers attend official IB workshops. They're really deeply trained in conceptual learning and inquiry. All of our middle school teachers are additionally subject-specific trained. And then we host ongoing school-based professional development. That is one of the most fun things Mrs. Thomas and I get to do.
Love. And Mrs. Lugo, I think that's just about it. I hope that we have excited a little curiosity and interest in you. And we encourage you to reach out to Mr. Brad Hillary, our admissions director, with any questions and to set up a time to visit. I think there's nothing better than hearing about how wonderful IB is and then getting to step into our classrooms and see it happen right in front of your eyes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It was really a pleasure to spend some time with you today and sharing a little bit about our passion for the IB program. I hope that we get to share it with you and your children soon.